Simcha.
I'm here.
You're here. Okay, let's start. Take out the Sfarim. And we are on page. We're starting a new subject today. Bishul Akum. Page Samach 65. Yes. Let's begin. So we're starting a new subject. Until now, we studied the laws of Pasach and bread baked by a non-Jew. Today, we're going to get into the laws of Bishul Akum, foods cooked by a non-Jew. So, just to refresh our memory, there is a general blanket prohibition that Chacham established with the laws of Pas and Bishul that is equal to both Pas and Bishul. The details of what is prohibited with regards to Bishul, what's prohibited with regards to Pas, differ because they have a different structure. But the reason why they established the laws is the same. So again, the reason is as a Geder Chasnas, as a protective measure against intermarriage. And the secondary reason is that they might come to put us some non-kosher food in the mix. If they don't keep kosher, and they're going to prepare our foods. So now we're going to study the halachas of Bishul Akum in depth. Just to refresh our memory also, with regards to Bishul, there are three primary criteria to remember. Only foods that are of a royal nature need to be cooked Bishul Yisrael, which means to say only foods that are of a more fancy nature have to have a Jew's involvement in the cooking process. For example, chicken, meat, potatoes, fish. But when you make popcorn, which is really a snack food, halachically speaking, it does not require a Jew to turn on the popcorn maker to make it Bishul Yisrael. The ingredients have to be kosher, of course, and the process has to be kosher, but the actual process does not necessitate a Jew's involvement in turning on the fire. In addition to that, the Chachamim also said that a food that's edible in its raw state and gets cooked, for example, applesauce, tzimmis, you can eat the carrots raw if you want to be like a bunny rabbit. Or you can have apples all day, right? You can eat it raw. So when a non-Jew cooks those two foods, there isn't that feeling of indebtedness that gets generated by foods that are not edible raw. For example, you take a potato, you have no cooking apparatus. The potato is just as good as a rock. You're not going to eat it raw, or you're not going to eat meat that's raw. So when it gets cooked, there's a certain sense of, wow, look at that creation. It's really beautiful. It's delicious. So it's a sense of real closeness. But if it's an apple, big deal. I could have had it raw. The carrot, I could have eaten it raw. It's good for my teeth. It's good for my, I can exercise my biting skills. So there isn't that sense of a great effect. So therefore, such foods do not have to be cooked Bishul Yisrael according to halacha, because they're edible in their raw state. Now, whether or not it's advisable to have a non-Jew cooking in your kitchen, even foods that can be edible raw, is another question, and it's not advisable. So even though if I have, let's say, 100 pounds of apples and I'm making tons of applesauce in my kitchen, or I'm selling applesauce, technically speaking, a non-Jew is allowed to turn on the fire, cook the apples, and do the whole process in a kosher, responsible manner. But I wouldn't allow them to do that in a home setting because I don't want to get them used to turning on fire, because then they might turn on the fire for my cholent and it's going to be big problems, or turn on the fire for my potted chicken or for my salmon dish. All that's going to create a lot of problems like Bishul Akum, and I'm going to have to kasher my kelim. So therefore, we have a policy: don't turn on any fires. But strictly speaking, from the strict letter of the law, if they turned on a fire when they made applesauce or they made tzimmis, it's not Bishul Akum. Is that clear? Good. Halacha Aleph inside. Just like the way that Chachamim prohibited Pas Akum, Bishul Akum, they also prohibited Bishul Akum. Okay. Anything that a non-Jew cooked, a Jew is not allowed to consume. Chacham are more stringent with regards to Bishul Akum than they are with regards to Pasakum. Bishul Akum, this Gezerah Bishul Akum is Kabbalah b'chol Yisrael, is accepted in all Jewish communities. By a dish, by a food, there isn't this concept of Chaya Nefesh. Just as a reminder, the Chachamim were leaned with regards to bread because they said you're allowed to have palter, bread baked by a non-Jewish baker, even though we as Hasidim are stringent about it, because bread is a staple food. You need to survive. You cannot survive without bread. With regards to foods, that particular school of thought does not apply because you can survive with other foods. You can survive without them. You just need bread and water to survive. So by tafshel, you don't have this concept of Chaya Nefesh like you have by bread. Therefore, a non-Jew who's a baker, that cooked with the intent to sell to others, their cooking is aser. Halacha beis Isur Bishul Akum gamu gzeira mishmes chatmas. This Bishul Akum is also gzeira because of intermarriage. Shema yazminu hanochri. Maybe the non-Jew is going to invite them over. Lechal ima beveisei, to eat by them in their house. V'yovei leschaten imei, and is going to come to intermarry. Kach pershu reva poskim. That's how most poskim explain and bring it down. And he says that's the opinion of the Rambam and Rashi. There are some opinions that hold that the reason why the Chacham established these laws is ki asr bishul akum michashash shema yachelenu anochi dovra asr. That's the Aruch HaShulchan, that maybe the non-Jew is going to put some non-kosher food into the mix, and therefore we cannot allow them to cook the food for us. That's a secondary reason why the Chacham established these laws in the first place. Now we're looking at Halacha Gimel inside. Tnoi Yisur Bishul Akum. Shnei Tnoim Hisnu Chazal B'Yisur Bishul Akum. The two Tnoim, two things that have to be in place. Ha'echad sheyeh ma'achal davar tzarach bishul, has to be the kind of food that you have to cook. Ve'enu ro'y lachal chai. You cannot eat the food raw. Shem ro'y liyes nechal chai b'yde chai. It's the kind of food you can eat it raw. Ain't shum chashivas l'zeh. There's no chashivas shebishlei hanachi that the non-Jew cooked it. Because again, as I said before, if you have let's say an apple and a non-Jew makes applesauce, so it's just a different way of eating it. There isn't that sense of wow, oh, you made something amazing. You made a creation. No, you just took apples that are edible raw and you just cooked it. Big deal. It's like the non-Jew didn't do anything. That's how the Chacham explains it. The second clause is that the food has to be the kind of food that you would serve at a king's table. So if it's a kind of food that's not chashav, even though it's not edible raw, for example, popcorn, you cannot eat popcorn seeds raw. If you do, you'll visit the dentist. But on the other hand, even though you pop them, they're not chashav because it's a snack food. Something that's just a snack food, you don't invite your friend over to come and eat. Let me just explain what that means. The Rambam uses this as a clear definition of how it's also and the Kaf Chaim brings it down. How do you define whether or not a food is kosher? It's a very interesting question. So imagine it's getting cold outside. So I'll give you an example of the cold. Let's say it's 5 degrees outside. It's freezing cold. And you have an apartment on Lefferts and Albany, and your friend has an apartment on Brooklyn and Eastern Park, where you're far away. You're 6 blocks away from each other. Your friend calls you up and says, you know, I just made popcorn. I want to invite you over. You say, no, thanks. It's freezing cold outside. I'll make my own popcorn. But on the other hand, if your friend says to you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm making a fantastic supper. I'm making potted chicken with rice and vegetables. she'll say, let me know when to come over. Just tell me when supper is starting, I'll be there. She'll come out because the chashivas of the food is going to be greater. The person's going to go out and because of the chashivas of the food, there's that draw. So when the food is not chashiv, it's like, I could do it myself in my own apartment, big deal. But when it's chashiv, oh, you fussed over this and you made a big feast. Oh, I'm coming. That's the idea. Something that's not chashiv, you don't come over, you don't schlep out just for popcorn. If you're there, you might eat the popcorn, but you're not schlepping out just for the popcorn. Or for cornflakes, for example, or Rice Krispies. Big deal, I'll have in my own apartment. And it's not going to come to bring it to intermarriage. And according to the second reason, since it's not something that you would ordinarily invite someone over for, they're not going to come to give you something that's usher. Therefore, the net result is that Chacham only prohibited Bishul Akum on something that's not edible raw, and something that would be like served on a king's table. Now, how do you define whether or not something is chashav? It's also an interesting question. There's that famous discussion about Ronald Reagan and the jelly beans. Ronald Reagan, who was the president of the United States, I think many people would consider him as their favorite president. I'm not getting into politics here. He used to like jelly beans. And he was a state leader. He was a president of the United States. It's a very chashuv position. Before that, he was an actor. So the fact that he would eat jelly beans, does that make it that the jelly beans are chashuv and our oil shulchan malachim would be served at a king's table? So that gets into a whole discussion about how that's defined. So, really the debate is if an important figure eats this food on their own in their private quarters, when no one's looking, they're snacking on jelly beans, they're fussing away. Does that make it chashuv? Maybe not. We all have that, got a weakness, we binge a little bit. So does that make it chashuv? Or it has to be where when he's sitting at a state dinner with all the senators and the Congress and the House of Representatives, or he's inviting state leaders from other countries, and they're serving jelly beans. That's a different story, right? If you imagine they're discussing, they're at a summit, and they're eating jelly beans. That's already, maybe that's a better proof. So really, one could argue and say, well, only if they're sitting together in a formal setting and they're eating jelly beans, would that serve as a proof that jelly beans are chashuv? Correct? If he's sitting on his couch late at night, in the Oval Office, whatever, just munching on jelly beans, it's not a proof, right? I think that's a pretty fair argument to make. I think the net result is that jelly beans, and pretty much everyone agrees that jelly beans are not chashuv because they're a snack food, they're junk food. It might be delicious, but you don't serve them as a meal, and it's not, and the like. I have a customer of mine, a client, who before his current position, he's in sales right now. For his current position, he was a chef, and he used to cook for state dinners. So he used to cook for like 5,500 people at a time. And I asked him, I said, would you serve anything at a state dinner that's coming from a can? Or is everything fresh? He says, Rabbi, nothing from a can. It's interesting to hear that. Anyway, so it really depends on the country. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is before I get to the next paragraph, which is paragraph 4, Halacha Dalid, we're on page 66 for those girls that just came. How do you define something that's edible raw or that's chashuv? I had a colleague of mine who's probably today in his 80s. He was an older fellow at the time. He told me that when he was in Europe, and as a child, nobody ate carrots that were raw. No one ate carrots raw. Just didn't exist. In America, you eat carrots raw because we want to be like bunny rabbits. Because they convince us it's good for our eyesight.
That's a scam. I tried it.
Yeah, true that. But anyway, but whatever it is, they convinced all the school children to eat carrots, be like bunny rabbits. But in Europe, they don't do that. So in Europe, if someone would cook the carrots, it would be a problem of Bishul Akum because it goes according to the country that you're in. In that country, if it's not edible raw, it's Bishul Akum. In America, it's not a problem because it is edible raw.
Why?
That's the way these laws work. Halacha Dalit. Davar anechol k'meishu chai, a food that's edible the way it is raw. She'etiru chachamim, that the chachamim said it's permissible after Bishul Akum, even though the non-Jew cooked it. Totally b'minhag achilas b'nei adam. It depends on the custom of the locale. Imrei b'nei adam eichel miserak mavushal. Most people eat it only cooked. After yachar eichel chai, even though an individual eats it raw. But l'daitoi, their das is considered nullified. Even to that individual, that food will be usher if a non-Jew cooks it. So in other words, it goes after the majority. That's how we define whether or not this location is edible raw. Same as in the reverse. If most people eat it raw, and an individual only eats it cooked. Again, that person's approach is nullified with the masses. If most people eat this, so in America, let's take an example. America, most people eat carrots raw. I'm not saying you only eat it raw, but they would. Then if you have one person who would never eat a carrot raw, it doesn't matter. Carrots are still considered to be edible raw.
So what is matter?
Just 1 second, please. In one country, it's edible raw, and in another country, it's not. You go after the country that you're in. So therefore, let me explain. If I'm, for example, making a dish, I'm going to make cooked carrots, and I'm going to put it into a can. If I make cooked carrots in Europe at a time, I don't know what it's like today, but at a time when in Europe, this is going back 60, 70 years ago, where nobody ate carrots raw, then I'd have to make those carrot dish. I'd have to make a Bishul Yisrael. If I made that same dish in America in a can, I wouldn't have to make a Bishul Yisrael because in America it's not chashuv. Now, what's your question, Rotan?
So what is matter?
What does matter? A lot of things matter.
No.
So, so if you're in a country,
Can you give example that
yes,
are not allowed?
yes. So an example of not allowed would be in America, corn is considered to be not chashuv. It's not. It's like it's a cheap staple. But in Eretz Yisrael, corn is chashuv. So they would serve corn salads at a wedding. So in Eretz Yisrael, corn has to be cooked Bishul Yisrael. It's a different halacha. It's a different situation. So therefore, the halacha would need to be Bishul Yisrael. It's an example of a difference. Another example I'll give you, by the way, is that tortillas, right? You know tortillas, like the soft wraps. So in America, they're more like a fast food tortilla, you know. So if you have, let's say, a corn tortilla, it's sloppy joes. You put it inside. It's a fast supper, whatever. It can pass as a supper, but it's not a chashuv supper. But in Mexico, tortillas is what everybody lives on. So it's more chashuv there. So it's a different situation. So it's a different country. You go after the country that you're in.
So what? So there.
There it could be, would be considered to be a shulchan malachim. Maybe even a corn tortilla would be.
So,
America, it's not chashuv.
So for this example, in Mexico, as Jew, you need to see.
Make sure that's Bishul Yisrael.
Oh.
I'll give an example. There, the halacha would be stricter. It's complicated, huh?
Very. The most.
It keeps me in business.
Challenging thing.
It keeps me in business. No, but whoever's giving the chedim in those countries would know these halachas and would keep that in mind. I'm just trying to basically impress the point upon you girls is that it depends on the country that you're living in or you're in. That's how we define whether or not it's Eila Shulchan Melachim or it's Nechel K'moshu Chai, that it's edible raw or something that you would go on a king's table. It depends on the locale that you're in. It could be in a different country, it would be different.
Yeah, so if now we in Mexico and we don't know.
Call the Mexican rabbi. I'll tell you what they do
And
over
ask
there.
him what is their official.
Yeah, what their policies. Yeah. Yeah.
And if we are here in America,
So you follow what's like in America.
so what is
It's not about a personal minute. It's about what goes on in this country.
Yes, so what is it?
When it comes to personal minhagim, they travel with you. But when it comes to how you define whether or not something would go on, was fancy, depends on the country you're in, or how you define whether it's edible raw, depends on the country you're in.
So here what is it?
As I said, in America we eat carrots raw, we eat apples raw, and corn is not so choshev. So in America, in that sense, it's easier. Corn is the cheapest commodity. So if you want to make, that's why corn syrup is very bad for you. I mean, they make a lot of sweeteners from corn. It's the cheapest feedstock, if you will. Halacha hey, depends on the place. It's hard to actually to derive from the poskim sheba avar. What's considered today, what's not called because the food that was chashuv to people then is not comparable to the food that is given today. Any questions on what I said so far? No? Let's continue.
What's the most controversial food with halacha?
Controversial food?
Yeah, like a food that just has so many halachic debates behind it.
Good question. Then we know that.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah. What?
Chasa.
You can think about it for next class.
I need to think about that. It's a loaded question. What happens if you have foods that are a mixture? For example, I make a soup. I make a vegetable soup. I put carrots in there, they're edible raw. I put water in there, it's edible raw. I put celery in there, it's edible raw. But I also put in potatoes, which are not edible raw. So the majority of the food, if you count the water and the liquid, mass, is going to be foods that are edible raw. Just the potato cubes are not edible raw. And I forgot to turn on the fire. So Anand, turned on the fire. Is that going to be Bishul Akum, or if the majority is not a problem? So when it comes to Bishul Akum, we go after the majority of the food. If there's a mixture of foods that are not edible raw mixed into it. However, there is a very strong but. That's only true if you cannot see the food that's not edible raw inside it. So if it's pureed, I make a vegetable soup and I puree it, I cannot see the potatoes anymore because they're all mixed together. They're all one big mush. Then the potatoes become nullified in the majority of the food that's edible raw. However, if I see the cubes themselves, I can't say they're nullified because they're there. The laws of nullification work in such a way, it's plain old logic, that you can only say something's nullified if you can't see it. If I see it, it's now nullified. Make sense? Halacha vav inside. If you mix foods that are edible raw with something that needs to be cooked with the Jew's participation, you go after the majority of the food. If the majority is the kind of food that's edible raw, the non-Jew cooks it, it's all permissible. If they're exactly even, you can also eat it. It's nullified in the majority. Some say that it's not nullified by the majority. It seems like we go after opinions that say it's nullified in the majority. These halachas are said in such a with a tanai that the food that's aser as long as it's not something that's discernible for itself. Which means to say, as I said earlier, I make a vegetable soup and I have cubes of potato inside. So even though percentage-wise the potatoes only make up 5% of the actual soup, so it's for sure nullified in the majority. It's only 5%. But because I can see the potato cubes, I cannot say they're nullified. If they're all zoomed up together in the puree, then it would be considered to be nullified. Any questions on what I said so far? No. Halacha Zayin. יש מן הראשונים שהתיר מה שבישול אנוכי בבית יהודי, כי לשייך בחשש הסחטנוס, כיוון שלא יובל לישראל לאכול בבית אנוכי. There's an opinion that says, this is the sheet of Rabbi Avram ben David in Tosfos, it says that if a non-Jew cooks in a Jew's home, there's no concern of intermarriage. Why? Because it's a Jewish environment. Environment means זאת אומרת סביבה. זה סביבה של יהודים. אין שום דאגה של... כן, נכון. Most opinions don't agree with that opinion, and the halacha is not like this opinion. Therefore, in a case where a non-Jew cooks even in a Jew's home, and even if a Jew watches it, but a Jew did not actually turn on the fire, there's a problem, and the food is Bishul Akum. Now we're up to page Samach Ches, Halacha Ches. I had a case once, by the way. A Lubavitcher woman called me. She was working, and she had a housekeeper who used to be Jewish, a Russian Jewish woman. But then she had left, and now she had a new housekeeper who was not Jewish. And her children were home. They were young children. They were like 4, 6, and 7, maybe, young kids. And the non-Jewish, so she prepared a big supper, like a chicken and a turkey, potatoes. It was all prepared. She told the housekeeper just to put it into the oven at 4 o'clock, so it should be ready for supper. She forgot that the housekeeper was not Jewish, because the previous housekeeper was Jewish. And this housekeeper put it in the oven, and then she called me. She says, "Oh no, what should I do?" Big problem. The non-Jew turned on the fire and cooked it. It's Bishul Akum, so the food's not kosher. And I told her not only that, but you even have to kosherize your pots.
Really?
Yeah.
להטביע את הכלים?
לא להטביע, להכשיר.
כן.
Not to teufel, to kasher the kelim. There's a machlekes about it, but we follow the opinion that says you have to kasher kelim under most circumstances.
How?
What?
How
do you kasher the kelim? Depends on what we're talking about. But if it's a pot that was absorbed with liquid, we have to boil it out. If it's a frying pan, maybe it needs to be torched. Or depends on what it's. Probably you can just boil it out in this case, but that's what has to happen.
What is the difference between atbala and achshara?
No, hatbala, tibul is tzvila b'mikveh. That's to bring tahara to a vessel. Hachshara is to take out the non-kosher taste in a vessel. It's to make it kosher. It's a different thing. Tvila is a davar ruchni.
If you have like new things, you put it in.
So you don't have to kasher the new vessels. You have to tevel them, though.
It's only for the first time.
Nachon.
And then if something happened with a non-Jew, you need to only kosher.
Let's say I have a kosher pot that I teveled and it became not kosher because I made a mistake in the kitchen. I don't have to re-tevel it. I own it. You only have to tevel it if it was owned by a non-Jew and became a Jewish home. That's fine.
So only dip hot water.
Dipping, koshering is with hot water. Dipping in a mikveh is not hot. It's regular cold water or warm water. There's an expression in the Gemara. I think it's a Gemara. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a Jewish folk. I'm not sure it's the Gemara actually. When you're talking about sometimes if you put, let's say I have a pot that's milchiks, right? And I put in a ladle inside there, it's a milchik ladle. So I didn't do anything, it's good, right? So you say a kosher top, a kosher pot, and a kosher ladle, everything is fine, right? The same thing's like if two people can marry each other. They're both Jewish, they're not related, they're not like brother and sister. So it's a kosher top and a kosher ladle, it's fine. You're gonna have a kosher pot and a kosher ladle, it's fine, they could be together. It's an expression. Okay. Halacha Ches. All right. the next halacha gets into the whole discussion about household help. I want to give this a preface by saying that in the olden days, and years ago, today when you have someone helping you at home, cleaning help, or you help in the kitchen, it's not avdos, it's not servitude. They can leave whenever they like. In fact, the owners are serving the people out there to help them. Because if they quit on them, oh my gosh, you'll freak out. Not you, people freak out like, oh no, where's my help? Because you're dependent on it. So they're fully in control of their situation. They have they want to be paid, they want to be compensated, but they consider it to be fair wages. And they can leave whenever they like. So it's not real avdos. In halacha, there's a difference between a non-Jew who's working in a Jew's home voluntarily because they want to be there, because they want to make some money. It's an arrangement that works for them. And between someone who's there because they're your servant and they have to do it. So a servant, halachically, that kind of situation, halachically, is easier. But today's situations that we have is not real servitude. It's just we have someone who works with it. We hired them. And we hope that they're going to be happy. We try to make them happy. On Shabbos, when the guy was in my house cleaning up after the Shabbos meal. So I had cholent. So we had meat in the cholent. I said to my wife, I was serving the cholent at the table. I said to my wife, can I give the goya a piece of the meat? Because of course we give her food also. She's just to eat. I says, yeah. So I gave her a piece of meat, a nice piece of meat. And I told my wife later, I said, she probably doesn't eat as well anywhere else where she is, because she's poor. She doesn't, where she is, she doesn't get meat. So she's eating better here than she is at home. So that's also considered a perk in the job. Besides the fact you have to pay her, but if you treat her well, they're happy, they feel appreciated. And it's an Indian to treat them well. I think there's a story also with the Rebbe. There's a woman who helped at the Rebbe's house. I think the Rebbetzin, so they used to give her gifts to show appreciation. I think the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe said to give. The Rebbe said to I think the Rebbetzin gave her a gift. So you have to give them a gift to show appreciation. Darkei Shalom. It's don't just take it as for granted, so to speak.
They prefer money.
Yes, they do. They do prefer. It's true. That's true, and that's okay. Okay, let's look at this inside. Halacha ches, page samach ches. Bishul de shifcha v'zeret habayis. Through cooking through a shifcha, which is a maid servant, or a zeret habayis, someone's helping out at home, domestic help. Yesh kam came in a rishonim shekosvu she'eved kenani v'shifcha kenani shel Yisrael. Some say that an Evet Kenani, a Shifcha Kenanis of a Jew, Shebishli Michael, there's no issue of Bishul Akum under them, they cook. Hatam, Ki Abdish Yisrael, Eine Bechlal Goyim, Ki Ine Mechuy B'Ktzas Mitzvahs, because a real servant is not part of the definition of a regular non-Jew, and they even have to keep some mitzvahs. V'gam le'shayach, Chashash es Chatnos, and there's no concern of intermarriage, Ki El V'masha Yisa Anochem Yirit Zoynei. The concern of intermarriage, of a sense of unhealthy closeness, is only when a non-Jew does something out of their own will. Then it's like, oh, thank you, you did it, and then you start getting a little too close to them. But if you're doing it out of servitude, no, on the contrary, the relationship is defined. I'm the master, you're the servant. There's no kirvadas then. This svara is only possible. So is only applicable by servants and maid servants that are meshubal that are enslaved to us forever.
It doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Ah.
But not in the kind of help that we have today. But rather they just work by the day, and they have the din of a regular non-Jew. A non-Jew cooks in the house. I get safe share shitas on his girl's achas. We have an opinion that says that if it's cooked in a Jew's home, it's easier because there's no sense of closeness there. It's a Jewish environment. The shifcha is not part of the gzeira. The nesel is a noga b'nei Ashkenaz ba'avar l'hakal hatashi v'ashal shvachas v'es Yisrael. In the olden days, when you turned on a fire, you had to professionally tend to the fire. It wasn't like you just turn on the oven knob today. You had to stoke the flames, you had to fan the fire, what have you. You had to deal with it. Because during the cooking time, the family would actually stoke the flames, it would fan the fire, would actually throw on a log, they would be involved in the actual tending of the fire. We say that for sure one of the family members did something to the fire. Before the food was fully cooked, and it's called Bishul Akum. In case of need, you can rely on this. In a place where there's no strong need, in this one should not rely upon this. That's the minute. This is all talking about in those days where you had a live fire, like a bonfire. Today it's not like that. Today's ovens, you don't stir the coals. So if you don't turn on the actual knob in the oven, then it's too late. It's a one function, one stop, and that's it. All you have to do is it takes like 2 seconds, just turn on the knob. No other activities necessary thereafter. In those days, it was a norm to actually stoke the flame. So therefore, that had to apply. You'll say, okay, for sure, someone must have stoked the flames of the fire. Today's ovens, we don't actually stir the fire. There's no heter that a non-Jew could cook in a Jew's home. Real comments, if you basically need to know to be made. Feel if you minhag of akilim, according to the minhag of those that are makel tzarcha yehudi limatzi b'veis b'yetziv v'yikonis b'yim. A Jew has to come and go in a house. They should lay tossim or shivcha davar aser, in order that the shivcha should not put something that's aser in the food. For example, a mixture of milk and meat, seichatav shall enter the food. What is this concept of coming and going? Anyone know anything about it? You heard it before? Yotze v'nichnas? Let's talk about it for a second. I have a housekeeper at home. Her name is Felicia. She helps, she cleans and whatever. She doesn't do any cooking in the kitchen. We don't let her do that. How do I know that she's not cooking when I'm not home? What? We have cameras. Okay, that's a good answer. It helps. Another way I know is that when it comes lunchtime, I make sure to feed her. So she's not going to bring her own food, right? I make sure I make her lunch, or if it's just going to be a sandwich, I prepare the dips for her. She has what she needs. So she's not going to be tempted to cook. But another way I know, which is the most important way halachically, is I'm a yotze v'nichnas, which means I'm coming in and out of the house at a random time. She doesn't know when I'm going to come. She doesn't know my schedule. She doesn't know my wife's schedule. So when someone is constantly coming in and out, there's a sense of presence. You're there. Now, there's a very geschmacke line, a geschmacke expression. The question is asked, why are we saying yotze v'nichnas? Going out and coming in. You first have to come into a place to go out. So it should be nichnas v'yotze, right? I come in and out.
But it's your home.
Okay, you're right. Good answer, by the way. Thank you. But still, but still the question, so why didn't we say nichnas v'yotze? I'm coming in and out, or I'm out and in. Why am I saying I'm going out? Still, so let's say it's a 50-50 chance. Why am I saying I'm going out and in? You see the question? No? Okay. No, I appreciate that. You're giving me a run for my money. The expression is, I'm going out and coming in. The expression could have been, I'm coming in and out. I'm in and out. In English, you say that, right? I'm in and out. I don't say I'm out and in. I'm in and out. The answer is because in order for this to be effective, please listen carefully. It's a powerful line. In order for this to be effective, it has to be that when I go out, the non-Jew feels that I'm coming right back in. Going out in. They feel that I'm coming right back in because they don't know my schedule. They feel my presence there. Then it's a real yotze v'nichnas. If it would be I'm going in and out, so I'm going in. They feel like I'm going out. That's not what you want. You want it that when you're going out, they feel like you're coming right back in. So they have to feel your presence. And then it's a proper sense of, okay, yeah, someone's here. Okay, you know what? I'm going to end with a joke. I'm in the mood. What can I do? We're stopping by Halacha Yud. There's a Jewish couple, Marty and Sarah. They have a daughter, Laura. She's 29 years old. And father's taking a walk with his daughter and says, Laura, have you thought about getting married, starting a family? She says, Dad, I'm dating a nice Jewish boy, David. For 6 months, we like each other, we're compatible, we're sharing the same interests in life, we're thinking of getting married, starting a family. So Dad says to her, well, before you make it official, Mom and I would like to meet David. Sorry, I still got another minute. Mom and I would like to meet David before you make it official. So they invite David over to the parents' house, and they're having dinner together. It's Marty and Sarah, the parents, Laura and the future Chatan, sitting together at the table. And Dad is talking to schmoozing, having a good time. And then the father turns to David and says, you want to marry our daughter Laura? You realize that life is not free. You have children together, educational expenses, utility bills, mortgage payments. What are your plans in terms of making a living? David says to Marty, God will provide. Marty was hoping for more of a concrete answer. Figures David's a little bit shy. We'll bring up the question later on the meal. They continue schmoozing, chatting away, having a wonderful time. At the end of the meal, Sarah, Laura's mom, is in the kitchen getting dessert ready, and it's Marty, Laura, and David at the table. Again, Marty with the same spiel. It says to David, you want to marry our daughter Laura, you realize life is not free, you have children together, educational expenses, utility bills, mortgage payments. What are your plans in terms of making a living? David says to Marty, God will provide. Marty loses patience, gets up from the table, goes to the kitchen where his wife Sarah is, and says, you know, dear, the problem is that David thinks that I'm God. Have a good day.